Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. I'm Councillor Chris Atwell, Cabinet Member for Central Services. Some housekeeping. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. Please assemble in front of Queen Victoria's statue in Guildhall Square. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust Fire Marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. May I draw your attention to the fact that the meeting is being live streamed and everybody speaking will be on camera. You are permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that neither disrupts nor records those stating explicitly they do not wish to be recorded. Can everybody please use your microphones and switch them off when you've finished? Some introductions. My opposition colleagues, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Councillor Emily Stradwick, Portsmouth Independence Party spokesperson.
Good afternoon, Emily.
Raymond Dent, Copner Ward.
Afternoon, Raymond. Nice to see you. And officers supporting us this afternoon?
Alison Harper, Democratic Services.
Thank you, Alison. And anybody who is presenting a item this afternoon?
So Charlotte Smith, Assistant Director of Corporate Services.
Sarah Liam Kulo, Election Services.
Richard Locke, Assistant Director Procurement.
Thank you very much, everybody. Apologies for absence.
Just Natasha Edmonds, unable to attend.
Okay, we haven't heard from any of the opposition people. Okay, members, any declarations of interest? Thank you very much. Okay, let's get to today's substantive business. And our first report is Accessibility Working Group Update, Election Services. Sarah, welcome. Over to you. If you can give us a bit of an introduction to the report.
Yeah, sure. I'll do a little summary of it, just sort of go through the key points. So as you've just said, I'm here to talk about the Accessibility Working Group, which is a group that aims to make elections accessible to everyone. Basically, what we do is to make sure that people with a disability have the same choices as those without, so that no one feels they have to choose to vote a certain way, by post, in person, things like that, because of their disability, that everyone can make a choice. The group was founded in 2024. We've since tripled its membership over the course of 11 meetings so far. We meet every 1 to 2 months at Age UK, which is an accessible venue. That's why we chose it. Anyone's welcome to join the group, or also to make a contribution in a different way. So if someone feels they can't attend a group in person, they're very welcome to make comments in writing or over the phone or anything that suits them. So basically what I do is I provide the platform, I organise it, the members are our lived experience experts. So that's where most of the input comes from. We always operate in co-production along the motto of nothing about us without us, which is an old disability activism motto. So I'll just run you through some bits of work that we've done. We have sort of split it a little bit by the people that this will help. So in general, our work has been very kindly recognised across the city, especially in the learning disability context, but we've also been recognised by, for example, the Association of Electoral Administrators. I'll start off with people with sight loss or a visual impairment. We've recently acquired our first McGonagall reader, which is the leading technology currently. It's an audio-tactile device that enables completely independent voting. So it means no one has to read anything, no one has to do anything for anyone. Once the device is set up, someone with sight loss or even completely blind can vote entirely in secret. This will be available for the upcoming elections, and we're currently running some demonstrations to help potential users to familiarise themselves with the device. Moving on to a large part of our work, which is supporting those with a learning disability and or autism. So we've got 3 main things in that field, really. So the voting support plan, the accessible voting day, and easy read guides. The voting support plan, which has since become a card rather than a plan, is something that people can, well, I say apply for, but there's no checks or anything. It's not an application, it's more just a request form, really, that people fill in, and we create a little card for them. It comes with a lanyard and a little holder for the card, and that details their requirements at the polling station. So it will say something like, I need someone to stay with me the entire time. I need someone to explain things to me, things like that. Just because for a lot of people it can be very challenging in a new situation to actually advocate for themselves. So this card basically advocates for them, and it also lists our office number in case anyone needs any help. They can ring us straight away and we can sort things out. The Accessible Voting Day, we're coming up on our 3rd edition of this now. It's a day once a year where we were very kindly hosted by Make in Fratton, and I basically set up a bunch of games and stations for people with a learning disability or autism to come and play those games and learn about voting. It's mainly aimed at older teens and adults, and we get school groups, organisations, people coming on their own, anyone's welcome. And what they do is they just go through these games which all explain different parts of voting and democracy, and they fill their stamp card, and at the end of the day they get a certificate. And this has been very popular, so we're very much looking forward to our 3rd edition, which will be in March this year. 24th of March it will be. We've just set that date. And then the Easy Read Guides, this is a co-production especially with the Dynamite Group, which is a social group for older teens and young adults with a learning disability in Portsmouth. We co-produce these guides based on the suggestion of service users who say they find online information challenging to access, who say they find elections confusing and all sorts of things. So we make these guides in co-productions with the group. They're in easy read format and they explain things like how to register or what happens on polling day or what's a ward, what's a council, or all of these things. So they're all available online and we hand them out as well. Then finally, I think as our sort of last section, we obviously also work to help people with physical disabilities or any kind of mobility issues have better access. What we did quite early on in 2023 and 2024, we double-checked all our polling stations just to identify if there are any areas for improvement. And that may be that we've had a ramp before, but we could actually get one with a better gradient, something like that. So all polling stations were legally compliant, but we just tried to make sure that it's even better. And we've changed some bits around, and people have told us that that's really helped them. What we're doing in connection with this now, this is a new project of the group that we're currently working on. We're creating an interactive map of all polling stations. So this will be hosted online, where people can then click on an icon to find their polling station, and it'll bring up a picture of the station and a description of it. And the description includes things like, is it a level access or is it a ramp access? Is it a permanent ramp, temporary ramp? How wide's the door? Is there an accessible toilet? Is there parking? All of these things. And this, of course, helps people with mobility issues, but it's also really good for those who might have anxiety or autism or anything like that, who find it really beneficial to see things before they go somewhere. And also, this is a pilot project for this election. We will be having accessibility inspectors on the day that will be making unannounced visits to polling stations just to check that everything that we give the presiding officers and the poll clerks is actually being used, just to make sure that everything's set up correctly and people do have the access that they should have. And this leads me quite nicely into our future work. We're currently on a monthly meeting schedule now, as the election is coming closer and we're finalising materials like the maps and the voter support card and things like that. We have scheduled the first demonstrations for the McGonagall Reader, like I've mentioned, with local visual impairment support groups. And the Accessible Voting Day date has also been set and the promotion is due to begin soon. So again, that's the 24th of March that we will be doing that. So we're hoping to make this election the most accessible yet.
No, absolutely. And we were, as you said, we already do what we have to do, but we want to do better and we want to make sure that people are able to vote in the same way, regardless of any additional needs. So,
Exactly.
well, members, any questions for Sarah? Yeah, comments and questions. Sarah, if I could ask you to just pop your microphone off. Emily, over to you.
Firstly, I just think it's a great piece of work that you've done. Like, to get anyone to be able to get out and vote, no more, and making it kind of politically neutral and teaching them an understanding. I think it's a great piece of work because I mean, a lot of people, even anyone that doesn't have any special needs, still can't get their head around elections. So the fact that you've gone out and done that for the last 3 years is great. And I know you said that when you assessed the polling stations, they were all deemed okay. As a personal experience, because the last election we had was obviously the by-election, the Paulsgrove one, and looking at that unit and how far away it was, I appreciate that. I'm guessing you got that feedback because it was all, I don't know if you got to go there, Chris, as well, but it was all mirrored. So if you had anxiety, it wasn't very clearly lit, and that would throw anyone off not to go there. And also for accessibility, it was a very long way to walk. So I know you won't obviously announce if there's any changing, but I'm just giving that feedback that was experienced. I'm sure you might have already, but just in case. But yeah, all the work to get people out and vote and understanding, I think is fantastic. So yeah, thank you for that.
No, and thank you for that. Paulsgrove has its own, difficulties in terms of, hills. And Yeah, no, exactly. But we do have to, you know, it's a good example of how we want to keep improving to ensure that everybody's got equal access to taking part. Sarah, did you want to respond?
Yeah, no, well, thank you for the kind words. We're definitely aware that especially Paulsgrove has, well, like a uniquely challenging geography, really, with it being on the hill, and a lot of the buildings are quite close together, so it's quite hard to find suitable stations in the sort of, especially further away parts that kind of go away from the main concentration of buildings. But it's really good to have that feedback. It's something that obviously with the map people would be able to see before, so they could be more aware of it. We are often limited by the buildings that are available, but we'll definitely, we're always happy to have the feedback, because if no one tells us, then we don't know, if you see what I mean. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Raymond, anything? No? Okay. Sarah, thank you. I mean, you know, you're out doing this work. It's you that does it, and it's all done in co-production, which is what we want to achieve, isn't it? We want to make sure we're working with people and not doing it to them. So thank you so much. I'm really excited to see the McGonagall Reader in the next few weeks. I think we've got a date in the diary. I'm going to come and have a look. Colleagues, I'm sure if you want to go and see that in action, Sarah would, you know, get in touch with Sarah. She'll sort some time out for you. But it's all good news from the work you're doing. So thank you very much. You are free to leave if you want to. If you want to get back to your mountain of emails. Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Okay. Digital inclusion. Charlotte.
Thank you. So, purpose of the report really is just to give an update on the work that we've been doing around digital inclusion. It's part of a wider piece of work to develop the council's digital strategy, which is looking at, as you'd expect, how we maximise the potential of new technologies for the organisation, but that also includes ensuring that those who use our services, residents in the city, have access to digital technologies as well. We started off the digital strategy work doing some engagement within directorates and looking at what would be priorities for them, and the digital inclusion work came up very strongly as something that directorates felt was important for us to look at. It links very strongly to our wider strategic priorities around health and well-being and also around economic development, so clear reasons to look at that. What we did, in line with the rest of the work we've been doing to develop the digital strategy, is essentially started from the position of needing to do the research. So we started a piece of research work working with the voluntary and community sector and with Hive Portsmouth, and with obviously with residents in the city from key demographic groups that we know are affected by digital, who are more likely to be digitally excluded, and did some research with them around kind of challenges, barriers, the real reasons why people find it difficult, because we could all make assumptions around what those reasons might be, but it's important that we really understand before we try and find things that will help to address. We then did some from the market research and from the areas that we identified as issues, we've then started some subsequent work with communities, taking again like the last piece of work, so taking those real community-centred approaches. And the idea is that we move on from what are the barriers and the challenges to actually working with people to understand what are the interventions that would actually help, and actually working with them to really drill down into the detail of that. So we've started that piece of work with building on the asset-based community development work that's been done in Paulsgrove and Portsea through Public Health and the Hive, and using some funding that we had from the Household Support Fund, so they actually had real funding to allocate, and they've done some work then to drill down into what those interventions might look like that will actually help, and they're putting those in place. So that's already underway from the next phase of work. Also from the market research, we identified that although there is a lot of support out there to help people who are digitally excluded, it's not necessarily as well coordinated as it might be, because it's being provided by lots of different organisations really, really well, but not brought together. So one of the solutions was to put together a new directory, really targeted at professionals as well as users to try and draw some of that support into one place so people find it easier to access. So that piece of work is underway. It's going to be added to the Hive directory, and that should be done in the next couple of months. We're also planning some further community engagement work over the next couple of months as well, to work with some more of the demographic groups that we know are affected. And once we drill down into what those interventions could look like, then we'll work with Hive, with voluntary and community sector, to look for funding sources and ways of enabling those interventions to happen. So that's where we're up to.
Thank you, Charlotte. Yes, really, I thought it's good to bring this to a public meeting today to let people know the work the council is doing in this space. Colleagues, questions, comments? Emily?
Just a question, because obviously it mentions the funding of the 35,000. How far do you think that will really take you, especially when you're looking at kind of digital stuff that's not exactly cheap? So what kind of priorities will we put in first? Because there's mention of Wi-Fi, suitable devices, recruit and train, etc., etc.
Absolutely agree. The amount of money it's not intended as a long-term funding solution. It's just intended to fund that piece of work as essentially as a pilot. So what we've been doing is trying things to see what works. Because we were able to, because that obviously the household support fund is for low-income households, because that piece of work was targeted at people in low income, we were able to use some of the household support fund money, but it is just a pilot. So it's looking at when they did the work in Paulsgrove and Portsea with residents and communities, the things that were identified were suitable, working, up-to-date devices, access to Wi-Fi and the things you'd expect, access to Wi-Fi and connectivity, but also support to help people to use devices, but very specifically needing that support, wanting that support in local venues where it's easy to access, where you don't necessarily have to make an appointment. It might be where you go anyway for different things. And so that money was there to enable some of that to be put in place as a trial, really, to see how it works. So the idea is that they increase the Wi-Fi availability in some community buildings, work with existing community groups who are already in contact with people who have need for devices, and so they're able to use some money to allocate some devices, and then we'll do some evaluation to see how well that's worked and whether it actually is helping to address the issue before thinking about, is that something we can roll out more widely, and would it work in other areas of the city as well. So that's the idea. So yeah, I completely agree. It's not enough money to anywhere near. It's just a pilot. And what we'd like to do, the government make funding pots available for digital inclusion. And so we know that there's potential money available. It gets, there are lots of, they put stuff out periodically. So what we want to be able to do is, when there are funding pots available, that we've got the evidence to show what we want to do will actually work, because that will help us to secure the funding.
And also, it's a sort of a Team Portsmouth kind of piece of work as well, isn't it? So it's about our networks and relationships as well to, to work with other people, because we're never going to have enough money to do everything we want to do. Is that answer? Sorry. Yeah. Good. Anything else?
No, because my question's already been answered in that question.
Good stuff. We've got some, I think the Disability Hub that is going to come online very soon at Cascades. I think that's a really important part of this work. And it's a shame that we haven't quite got there with opening that yet, but there'll be, one of the units will be a Disability Hub. It's a great opportunity there to help with digital inclusion. What else on my scribbled notes that I can't see now? But again, another really great example of co-production, which is really kind of it's a bit of a thread, hopefully people are seeing, that we're working with people. Okay, thank you, Charlotte. Unless there's anything else, you're also free to go. You probably do want to go and just get back to your emails. Thank you. Appreciate that. Register service update. Lydia?
Hello. Yeah, so it's just a sort of general update from the Register Office, really. Obviously, being a statutory service, our everyday work is sort of governed by the KPI targets that we have. But a few things I just wanted to highlight. So we've set fees in 2 years in advance now, which is really proving worthwhile doing. We're seeing an increase in marriage ceremonies, which I think, because we're able to give couples the information that they want when they want to book, we've seen a 17% increase in the amount of ceremonies that are being booked now, which is really fantastic. So that was as of the end of Q3 compared to Q3 last year. The number of new British citizens continues to increase each month, which is fantastic for the city. We are adding in additional ceremonies, as you're aware. Come along.
It was my great pleasure. I presided, if that's the right word, over a citizenship ceremony last week, and I would encourage colleagues to go along and just experience them. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, definitely. You're very welcome to come along. It's fantastic occasion, and it's really lovely that so many people want to kind of settle in the city. One of the key things that we introduced over a year ago was the birth registrations at the hospital. That continues to prove really popular. We're now registering around a third of births in the city up at the hospital. So not only is it good for parents to register their babies when they're still in the hospital, it also gives people that either live outside of the city or in the north of the city an opportunity to easily be able to do that without the cost of coming to the south of the city. We're also now undertaking pretty much all stillbirths registrations up at the hospital, which again, when couples are in that situation, to be able to complete everything that needs to be wrapped up whilst they're still in the hospital is really important for them, so they don't have to relive that awful scenario back at the Register Office when they then have to come and register. So I think that's proving really valuable both for the customers but also from our point of view in terms of achieving KPI targets. Just wanted to highlight the investment in the building and the gardens, which is very well received, both from the team's point of view in terms of them understanding the importance that the council places on the service, but also from a customer's point of view, it's a lovely place to come to mark those key moments in people's lives, whether that's happy or sad. And that continues this year with the improvements to the roof and the installation of the new air cooling unit, which again will create a nicer atmosphere for couples marrying or creating civil partnerships. The other thing I just wanted to highlight was around the digital side of the service. So we've had the new death registration system be implemented from the General Register Office, which is working well. The Digital Use and Access Act will come into being later this year, hopefully, and that will enable us to offer greater flexibility for customers initially to register deaths, which will, I believe, initially be over the telephone in a similar way to how it was during COVID, which whilst is a good, it just gives variation really. So informants that are perhaps abroad or living outside of the area can do it over the telephone with minimal inconvenience to themselves. But it's an add-on to the face-to-face service, which is incredibly important to a lot of people in those situations. So that will continue as is now. But it all kind of feeds into the sort of the wider digitisation of the service, which will be an ongoing project for a number of years, but it's good to be at the start of that journey. So that was the sort of the key points I wanted to bring out, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. Lydia, I mean, you know, what you and your team do and how you do it is extraordinary. And by the way, Lydia was on call on Christmas Day. This is a 365-day-a-year service, and again, I would encourage colleagues to go and say hello and chat with some of them. Well, they're very busy. Let them know you're coming. But what an extraordinary service. Let me go with colleagues first before I wrap up.
Just echo your words really, Chris, and the fact that you've been able to assist with couples that have experienced stillbirths and kind of make that a little bit easier. It's not completely, but just to stop them from having to think about the next thing, I think is beautiful, and I'm pleased that's working really, really well. So thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And being able to register births at QA has been, and that was your idea. And thank you, because it really helped people. And that's what we're all about, isn't it? Trying to make people's lives just that little bit easier. And as you say, also the other win for that is our KPIs have gone up. So it was the right idea, a good idea, well executed actually. So thank you very much. Yeah, and always things going on. And Raymond, hello, sorry.
Yeah, as having had to deal with the registry office later last year, I can just emphasise how amazing the service is there. It was not the best time of my life, but it became a lot easier with all your assistance. So echo the thoughts of everyone else, but yeah, thank you.
And also because you're a growing business, as you alluded to, people are feeling very romantic and are booking weddings. So, and that's also a really important kind of income for the city as well. So.
Yeah, and it's really kind your words. The team will really appreciate that. I think that's what they aspire to do, is to just make those situations, certainly the sad situations, a little bit easier and a little bit more straightforward. And if a customer leaves saying, "Oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be," then that's great. That's what we want to be able to do.
And an extraordinary skill set, isn't it? The attributes you need to be able to deal with somebody in the happiest moment of their life, and then, you know, quite probably the saddest moment of their life. It's that's quite a pivot, isn't it? Amazing. Thank you for bringing the report, Lydia. Okay. Richard, contract management, corporate performance reporting.
Thank you. I'm just going to give a high-level overview of the report. So this is around what we do in respect of our contract management at the corporate KPI level. Just to put things into context, we spend between 250 to 300 million pounds a year with third-party suppliers. We have thousands of contracts as a council. That ranges from our 45 million pounds a year highways PFI, major strategic term service contracts in housing, IT systems like Oracle, down to individual packages of domiciliary care. So there's a massive range of different types of contracts and values of contracts and things that we do. But we need to make sure that we achieve best value in what we do. We need to be able to be accountable and ensure that we've got information that enables us to make improvements and continue to get what's needed for communities. So the idea of the KPI model is to provide a high level of visibility and assurance to councillors, directors, and importantly to communities. The paper sets out the review that we undertook of the old KPI model and then what we did to develop. So I'll just come on to that bit now. Coming out of the pandemic, we started to review reports and policies and various things that we couldn't do at that time because of the pressures. And I was reviewing the information that we were taking through to councillors that sat on the Governance Audit and Standards Committee, part of which was around what we do to report on contract KPIs. And it hadn't been maintained that well. It seemed to be out of date. So what came out of the review was it wasn't always being consistently applied. So on some contracts we had the KPIs and others we didn't. There didn't seem to be a very good reason why. They weren't always being completed by service areas. The KPIs, it was a free KPI system, so it didn't always appear to be relevant to every contract, which was impacting buy-in. And because of that, we only had around 20% of our contracts by number and 10% by value that were actually being subject to reporting. So we needed to do something about that. Not a very positive position in terms of assurance at that point. So me and my team looked at that in 2022, and what we came to was that the free KPI model was too complicated. We needed something simple that could be applied for any form of contract, really on a simple 0 to 5 basis, that wouldn't interfere with how people were managing the contracts in detail, because as you'd imagine, if you're managing a social care contract, you're managing an IT contract, the things that you do in your day-to-day life of managing those contracts can be quite different. So we need something simple and flexible that could still capture performance across that wide range. So we went away, developed the 0 to 5 model. We piloted it in our top 20 strategic contracts, so it's around about £100 million of spend a year. We got some good feedback from contract managers. We made a few tweaks. We made sure it could work through on our Intend system. And then that gave us the confidence to start developing this out. So when I say we have thousands of contracts, we really do. There's thousands on the register. So we had to think, where do we start with this? So we applied it on a phasing basis. We looked at where we're going to get the most visibility in terms of our spend. So we phased it through contracts. It sets out in the report how we did that by value over a period of time. We found as we went through that there was a few teething issues, as you'd expect. We provided training and support as we went through on that to make sure the services were handheld through that. And we've managed to achieve now a position where all contracts above £150,000 in lifetime value have the corporate KPI applied to them. And as of the last report we took to Governance Audit and Standards Committee, 100% of those KPIs that were due had been completed. So whilst that still leaves a lot of contracts that we will need to address in terms of value of contracts, and it's set out later on in the report here, it's around about 30, just over 30% of the contracts by number, but 96% of contracts by value that we can provide a level of assurance to say, okay, there is a contract manager in place, they are managing the contract, this is where we are in terms of a 0 to 5 position performance, and when we come through to committee or directors, if there is poor performance, then it enables us to go to those contract managers, make sure they've got the support they need to address the issues, and importantly provide some assurance that we're doing things to put it right and bring the performance up. In terms of the general performance that we took to last Governance Audit and Standards Committee, we're due to go back. We go biannually and go back next month. But the last time we went, in terms of our contracts, we had 176 that were scoring on the 4 to 5. So that's about just over 50% of the contracts who were achieving good to excellent outcomes. 46% just over in terms of the contracts that were scoring on a fair to satisfactory level. So around about 57% by spend. Only a very small proportion that were performing in a way that we would actually go towards termination or consider termination of the contract. I can't go into all of the details here without going into an exempt session because we're potentially getting into issues of commercial confidentiality, but if councillors want to have some further information on that, I can provide the details, but I can give assurance that for the 3 contracts that were scoring badly, one was terminated, the other has since been moved from one supplier to another, is now being addressed, and with the other one we've effectively suspended any further business with them, so we're not spending through that contract. In terms of where we go next with this, so giving the high level assurance is just one piece of this. What we're now doing is developing contract management training and support across the organisation, focusing that where it's needed. We've got really good contract management practices out in the organisation, but our contract management practice doesn't always talk to each other, so what we're also seeking to do is create networks and procurement champions and bring some of that really good experience together. I've got some really good people in my team, but we've got fantastic people in the council that are doing contract management that's bringing those people together to help support each other, really. So we're going through the structured contract management training. We're piloting that in particular areas, and that's linked into Government Commercial College best practice training support. We're going to be as well doing a lot of development on what can we do with Microsoft BI and Copilot and systems talking to each other, because the one thing which is problematic at the moment and continues to be is getting the data out quickly, and what I'd like to do is be able to get to a situation where you can almost press buttons and get things through in real time as and when it's needed, At the moment, it's probably a matter of a few days to get the reports, to provide the information. I'd like to get it down to a matter of minutes or hours. Previously, it was weeks, so we are getting there. So that's the high level position and high level part in terms of our next steps. Any questions?
Obviously, I'm not asking about the 3 contracts, but I just want, out of curiosity, how long do you allow them to get better? Is there a time frame, or?
It will vary depending on the nature of the contract. So sometimes you could have a situation where that contract might not be performing to where it needs to be, but if it is a social care contract and it's supporting a vulnerable user, and it might not necessarily be the issue with the person that's providing the support, it might be the organisation overall, you need to be quite careful how that goes through. So it can depend on the circumstances. Other contracts, if it's a major transition, so it's a big strategic contract, then you'll be going through months and potentially even longer than that to go through that point. So it's a very varied picture. What it states within our rules, though, is that if any contract even starts falling towards that position, they must immediately come to my service, any contracts above 150k, to get support as and when that is required. In terms of what the speed of the support, the action looks like, it's as fast as we can make it, but it will vary depending upon the circumstances.
And then just my other, it's slightly nitpicky, but with the number system, when it's, obviously you've got it all written on the timetable, I would have liked to have seen number 2 and 3 separate, because obviously number 2 is requiring kind of basic, minor sanctions on it to help improvement, whereas number 3 says they're doing just satisfactory. So I do feel there's a difference in the two. So I would have preferred to have seen them two separated, because one's requiring work and one's just kind of doing what the contract says.
Yeah, we've got all that information, so we can provide that to you.
Okay. Well, look, thank you for your work on reviewing the sort of the KPI stuff. I mean, you know, some of the numbers are enormous. I mean, they're just, everything's enormous, isn't it? In procurement, the value, the volume. So it's hopefully reassuring to people watching that that such a high percentage of our value is has gone through the kind of the system, and that we're really working hard to make sure that every penny counts at this council. Really grateful, and I know you've had a good new legislation come in. There's been lots of activity in your area over this last period of time, and of course going forward, it's entirely possible that that you'll have to deal with a whole new set of kind of circumstances. So personally, from me, thank you, because I know this is work that people don't typically see happening, but I'm grateful, and the work you do is seen and appreciated by the administration, and I'm sure by others this afternoon. So thank you for bringing the report and for giving it a sort of public airing. I appreciate it. Anything else? Okay. Well, unless there is anything else, shall we close the meeting at 14:38? Thank you, everybody.